Where belief is painful, we are slow to believe. Ovid.
Bending, Not Breaking. Season 2, Episode 18. The Earth King. Welcome back to another episode of Bending, Not Breaking. I'm Sunshine Mayfield.
And I'm Ben Pruitt.
And as always, last but not least, the wonderful producer aficionado.
You know, next time we should definitely bring him in first.
Who?
Max.
Oh, yeah, Max is here.
Yeah. That's who you were introducing.
Yeah, but you interrupted me and ruined my train of thought.
It's Max Gongoair, people.
Yeah.
Hi, Max.
Last in introduction, least in our hearts. Wait, what?
You just cut him off.
Huh?
Why would you cut him off?
I'm sorry, Max. You're not least in our hearts. Thank you for being here, Max. Let's talk about
Oh my God,
this
he's
show.
still not talking. Good Lord.
Max, you got anything to say? No, he's a strong silence. I mean, he didn't have anything to say. Look at him. All right, let's.
You're being intentional.
Now
about
it's time for Max's uninformed recap. This is the time that Max gets to talk. Max, is there anything you'd like to say before your uninformed recap?
Not at this time.
See, you didn't have anything to say anyway.
It's because you haven't given him his prompt.
I offer Max time to talk all the time, and every time he says, not at this time.
Sometimes he says no.
Okay. Max, are you ready for your uninformed recap?
Not yet. You haven't given me my prompts.
Well, here are your prompts. Your opening scene is Aang and Appa. See, I messed it up. Aang hugs Appa and tells him he misses him. The last scene of the episode is Azula, Ty Lee, and May meet the Earth King dressed as Kyoshi warriors.
Dun dun dun.
Your keyword/phrases are teeth marks, dragon dreams, secret files, positive attitude, and deceit. Max, you have 1 minute. Are you ready? Don't care. On your mark. Get set. Go.
Well, the episode begins when Aang hugs Appa and tells him he misses him. And it turns into such a passionate hug that Aang bites Appa on the neck, leaving teeth marks. And Aang also has this bacterial disorder in his mouth that when he breaks Appa's skin, it gives him weird dreams, including a dream about dragon. That's right, dragon dreams. And in this dream, he gets on a dragon's back and flies to a file room where they find some secret files wherein they learn about the power of maintaining a positive attitude whenever they are going through adversity.
10 seconds.
And turns out that dream was just a bunch of deceit, and it stinks because they wake up and Azula, Ty Lee, and May meet the Earth King dressed as Kyoshi warriors.
So first you said that Appa bit Aang, and then you said, but Aang had a disorder in his mouth that gave Appa bacterial infection.
Yeah?
I heard that Aang bit Appa.
Oh, I thought he said Appa bit Aang.
Listeners, tell us what really happened.
Which, like, a bison hickey
I already
would
told
hurt.
you what really happened.
Also, advice for the kids out there, don't give each other hickeys. It's weird. All right. Next. That's probably a weird segue. It's tough to really dig yourself out of that.
Yeah, that was bad. I was just going to let you go with it.
There's not a guess. Like, there was no, like, and speaking of hickeys, let's talk about what happens in this episode.
So, all right. And speaking of hickeys.
Well, let's talk about what happens in this episode.
Yeah.
We're looking at the episode The Earth King, which I gotta tell you, kind of a boring episode for me.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's kind of boring.
Exposition.
I know, there's so much exposition. But Ben, you get to recap it now. You get 30 seconds on the clock. And away we go.
The gang convinces the Earth King that there is actually a war outside of Ba Sing Se.
20 seconds left. More happens in this episode.
Zuko has a weird dream. You know, dragons happen. He's like, oh my god, exposition. Ty Lee May come in at the end and like,
5
oh my
seconds.
goodness, it's actually not the Kyoshi warriors. And he's
3,
totally
2,
deceived.
1. Well, you missed an entire villain that, gets his due.
A villain?
Yeah.
Oh, why don't you tell me about that?
No, we'll talk about it as we go through this thing and talk about belief.
The lens of
which makes
belief.
things real. Which makes you feel. You know?
Tell me more about your rhyme scheme.
That's a Gavin DeGraw song off the wonderful album Chariot. Max knows what I'm talking about,
I love
don't
that
you?
song.
Yes, Max totally gets it. Now
I was
on
right
to-
there with you.
Yeah. So go listen to Gavin DeGraw's Belief. It's a lovely song. That album's so good.
Check out the stripped version.
Yeah. Ooh, chocolate covered strawberries? Chocolate covered cherries.
Cherries.
It's Chariot, you know?
God.
All right. So belief.
Yeah.
What's belief?
I believe it's your turn to tell us what belief is.
Yeah, I told you. It makes things real, makes you feel.
Not using a convoluted song lyric.
It's not convoluted. It's very straightforward. This is so it's interesting looking at this episode through this lens because it really, to me, it brought up a lot of what happens when you're not believed. And not so much as you having belief in things, which definitely comes up in this episode, but more so of when you know you're telling the truth and people are telling you that you're wrong or that you don't know what you're talking about and they don't believe you, and how frustrating and harmful that can be. So that's how I kind of went through this episode.
I recently listened to Brene Brown's newest podcast.
Have you heard of her?
I think she's a really cool person if you haven't heard of her. But it was a podcast with an interview with Tarana Burke, who is the founder of the Me Too movement. And just fabulous way to spend your time if you have a way to listen to podcasts, which you obviously do. So I highly recommend finding it and listening to it, because it's really important conversation. And a lot of talk about belief in that, if you can imagine that. So I definitely felt some tinges of just the idea of Me Too and tinges of this concept of belief. Made this episode more real than it would be without watching it through a lens. So, yeah.
So one of the first moments that pops up for me in the show is when the gang, while fighting back against being attacked as they're trying to get to the Earth King, but consistently being like, I promise we're not trying to hurt you. Like, please stop throwing things at us. I'm sorry I just threw a boulder at your face, but like, it was self-defense. We're really on your side. Is really tough to make people believe what you're saying when you're actively acting against it.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. I think credibility was a very big thing that I focused on as I took notes throughout this whole thing, is how do you build credibility so that you can get people to believe you? And frankly, it sucks that we have to build credibility at all. Why don't people just believe? Why don't people just believe me? But credibility matters, and I think it's a really important factor in all of that, for sure. And right now, the gang's not very credible, and the king calls him out on it when he enters the king's room, whatever, at the antechamber, whatever it's called.
Yes, the king's chambers.
Yes, indeed.
The Great Hall.
Except it's not his chambers. It's
like
the throne room.
It's like throne room. It's like the Great
Throne
Hall.
room. There you go. Anyway, so they're in the room, and the king's like, "Why should I believe you when you took down all of my men? You rampaged through the city. You blah 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 blah." And they're like,
Oh, good touche.
"Touche."
No, good point.
Yeah. And then they drop their weapons, right?
Well, they're asked to, right? They make a deal.
Yeah.
Hey, we'll drop our weapons if you listen to us.
Yeah.
And then they get captured.
Well, and
immediately.
what really struck me there was that didn't make that much of a difference. Right? Like,
them getting captured or them dropping their weapons?
No, them dropping their weapons. Like, I feel like people in that position are often like, I will believe you if, and then they still like, no, now I'll listen to you. It's not that I'll believe you. It's that I'll entertain the concept that you might have something to say. Not that Like, you know what I mean?
Well, and so here's this really cool moment. You see where Aang could get out of his restraints if he wanted to.
Oh yeah,
So does he stay in them?
He waves it in front of them
to build credibility that, like, I can get out of here if I want to. I'm letting you capture me right now so that you'll pay attention to show you that I'm not a threat. Like, is that a way of building?
I definitely think that was probably intentional.
Hey, I can get out of this. I'm not going to.
And that means Toph can.
Oh yeah. Yes. And maybe the Dai Li aren't as strong as we think they are, but that's definitely a moment there. And so, but they're telling the truth, and Long Feng is there just,
whispering lies.
Yeah, it's a very what's the dude's Wormtongue?
Grimghoul, whatever his name is.
Yeah, Wormtongue, I think, is from Lord of the Rings. The Two Towers.
Yeah. Yes.
When Gandalf's coming into the room and he's
There's actually a
talking to
meme
the
about
king.
that, I think.
Oh, it's on our Instagram.
Oh!
That's where I posted it.
I legitimately don't remember where I saw that meme. That's not trying to plug the Instagram. But hey, you should go to the Instagram.
BNB_pod. We have Avatar memes.
That's a funny meme. You should go watch it. And by watch it, I mean, like, look at it.
Look at the meme or go watch The Two Towers.
Yes.
So side tangent. We're going to go on a quick sidebar.
It's a really long side tangent.
No, it's
that movie's really long.
You have to rank the Lord of the Rings movies from least greatest to greatest. What's the order?
I like the first one just because I've probably seen it the most, so there's probably more nostalgia there. But probably, is it 1, 2, 3? It might be 1, 2, 3 for me.
That's your least to favorite?
Oh, the opposite then. Like, least favorite would be Return of the King.
Yeah, I would say my least favorite is Return of the King, which is funny because that's the one that won Best Picture.
All the most things.
But I think that was because
I think it's still a beautiful movie.
The last one. Yeah. I think that mine goes. I think I love The Two Towers the most, specifically for the battle at Helm's Deep. Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of fun banter.
Oh, Gimli and
a lot of cool action
Legolas?
sequences.
Oh yeah.
So Two Towers, and that's where like introduction to all the Ents and stuff.
Oh, that's true.
So
that's true.
Two Towers is one of my favorites.
Ints. That was my little beatboxing lesson for you.
That was an Ents rave.
Cool.
All right, so back off the side tangent over to where we are now.
You never asked me.
So who has all
Max,
the credibility?
you don't like to rank things.
I also have never seen any of those movies.
What do you do? You've
Are you
never
serious?
watched Avatar. You've never watched any of Lord of the Rings.
How did you get to
Have
produce
you
this
read
podcast?
Harry Potter?
I have read Harry Potter.
Like the whole thing?
Yeah, all 7 of them.
What about?
And the play.
Okay.
Which
okay.
is
Cursed
canon.
Child.
All right, we're off to a bad start on this episode.
Max
'cause-
doesn't like the fantasy.
So here's the deal.
I just said I read Harry Potter.
That's the one
Max
fantasy thing
has
that you've done.
a lot of credibility to build with y'all, but the credibility he does have is in
Y'all
his
can't stump me on the
producing
terminal,
skills.
though.
So, speaking of
True
credibility,
story. It's not fantasy.
Long Feng has built up a lot of credibility with the Earth King, and
So let's talk about that.
it's really interesting because he's whispering in his ear and saying, "Hey."
But he hasn't been credible because he's been lying the whole time.
But the perception of credibility, right? Because he's been able to maintain because he's been able to brainwash people, he's been able to maintain this illusion that there is no war. And so that is building credibility in the king's eyes.
what's like? Because we always say, what's one of the best ways to build credibility?
Dwizwida.
Yeah,
My
terrible
favorite,
acronym.
My favorite acronym.
Do what you say you will do, right? But now we're kind of learning, is it make people think you've done what you say you will do?
Well, it doesn't work in the end here, right? You have to maintain that credibility, right?
He's a bad liar, which makes me wonder, like, why has he not been caught yet?
Yeah.
Hey, why does this drill at the outer wall have the Fire Nation insignia on it?
Well, you heard
You don't want to buy domestic goods for machinery like this.
The Earth King has never been to the outer wall. He had no reason to expect that the Earth King would ever get out that far. He had no reason to, because it's been literally his entire life without an Earth King going to the outer wall.
Fair.
So this is unprecedented, right? And when you are unable to plan for these unprecedented moments,
I've got a
it's going to fall through.
You can ride up.
And we're done.
So he's not very credible, but I guess he's built credibility over time, which makes the Earth Kingdom believe him. But the frustratingness around, that's not a word, how frustrating does it have to be for the gang who knows that, one, this dude just tried to kill us. He kidnapped Appa. He's clearly lying. And yet, this dude is eating out of the palm of his hands right now.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. I'm going to potentially lead into my political views here, but I feel fairly strongly about government with this mindset right now. I feel like the people who have all the power have given their ears to people who have masked this credibility and have been able to convince them that everything that they say is like gold coming out of their mouth. And so I am really struggling with my belief in the system. And that's really struggling because when Aang has a problem with the system, he can take down a slew of guards and barge into the room and convince them himself. But I don't know that I have that capacity to literally go walk into the rooms that need to happen and like actually make that difference where it will be heard by someone. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah.
And so like,
because you would be shot.
yeah, literally.
You would die.
I would, yes. And so
You don't
like,
have an avatar state.
you're darn right I don't. That would be cool though. Anyway, moral of the story is I just, this is a really important scene because Aang is able to do what most of us cannot when it comes to getting the attention of people in power. And I'm just being called to think about like, what can we do? What is the equivalent? And how do we accomplish that?
Yeah, and it's tough because I'm wondering if that's a feeling that other people have felt for a long time. And then what's the difference between the first time they talked to Long Fane and the first time they're talking to the Earth King? And are you talking to people in government who are oblivious to things going on, or do they know about it and are choosing to ignore it?
Well, exactly, right?
And I unfortunately, I don't think you know who you're talking to.
It makes it even harder
Which
to
makes it
discern,
even harder.
right?
Do they believe you? Do they know you're right and still choose to ignore it?
Yeah.
Or they just don't believe you? That's not your experience.
And both are incredibly unfortunate and incredibly real. So, yeah, I don't know the answer, but what I do know is that the power that I do have to utilize is voting, and I have been demonstrating that right, and I hope you will too. I'm gonna get off my little
soapbox.
Soapbox now.
And then you get more moments of that are frustrating because not only are you trying to convince someone of these things, not only is the gang trying to convince the king, but everywhere they go, it looks like the Daile's been a step ahead. Hey, we'll take you to Lake Laogai and show you the cells and the tunnels and the places and it's gone.
Yep, just kidding.
And then it's
well, the problem is Sokka's like, that should make it even more credible.
Which that's not, when he said that I was like, that's it. Like I disagree, right? Like
yeah,
if nothing's there, I don't know where you're coming from, Sokka, in that moment. But then it's I will give you this form of incentive to come with me and see the truth. Which still, does that speak a little bit about government as well? Which
it sure does.
Hey, the truth is out there, but I have to incentivize you in some way, shape, or form that has nothing to do with this.
Yeah, it just reminds me of lobbyists.
So
and
that
like,
you will see this, right? You get to ride Appa.
Yeah.
Which here is for a good reason. And there are good reasons,
well,
right?
there are good lobbyists, right?
There are lobbyists that are fighting for good, just things. And then there aren't, right? So,
yeah.
And we see the drill. We see that Long Fei is a pretty terrible liar.
Well, before we get to even where we get to Long Fei is a terrible liar, I think what we see is the Earth King on the way to that moment is like, I really hope that this not real. I hope that
you're not being honest. I don't want there.
I don't want there. Yeah. I don't know what the exact quote is, but it goes back to the opening, right? It's where belief is painful, we are slower to believe. And this is a moment where this would be a very painful belief to swallow.
And here's the moment where you have to say that's a privilege to say I don't want to engage with that.
Yes. Yes.
There's a privilege to saying this might be something that I don't mentally want to deal with, and so I'm going to step away from it and not engage with it.
I.e., everyone who's just choosing, I don't want to make a decision. I don't want to be involved in politics, so I'm not going to vote. That is real, y'all. I have people in my life that I love and care about that I don't understand.
Because they don't see that the outcome is going to affect them personally.
Yeah.
But the reality is the outcome is going to affect thousands of other people that you don't know.
Correct.
Yeah. And so you get this moment where he says, I don't want the war to be real. I don't want to deal with it. And that's a privilege that we have to recognize. I don't want to think about the rights of other people right now.
Yeah.
Okay? That's your choice, and that's a privilege.
It is a huge privilege. Huge.
Let's talk a little about Zuko. Zuko's got some things going on.
Zuko
He's not feeling hot.
in mid-existential crisis right now.
He's got some fevers. He's got some dreams.
Well, I think it's so fascinating that he is experiencing physical illness because of a moral choice that he has made.
Well, and we've talked about it before. Your body has physiological responses to emotional triggers.
Absolutely.
And you're seeing that here in this moment.
And this is like I just got chills thinking about this. Like that is so massive. Like what an important illustration of what this can look like.
Well, think about it every time I've had a rumble stomach because of guilt or shame
Or
behind
anxiety.
And how you legitimately I physically get tired and I physically get nauseous.
Yeah.
When I can pinpoint feelings where I feel truly guilty about something.
Yeah.
And I know that I'm typically feeling some form of shame because I want to go to bed at 6:00.
Yeah.
And so I think that it's important to understand that, and we get that here in this moment, to where his body is trying to make him believe that something's up. His body is giving him reason to say, you need to deal with this.
Yeah, the body keeps the score, y'all. Body keeps the score.
It's a book.
Really good book.
Who wrote it? So people can go look it up and give credit to him.
Bessel van der Kolk.
Okay. Max will spell that later in the show notes. He probably won't. What's on Twitter, Max?
Lots of stuff.
And that's what you call dead air.
No, I think that we'll add a little segment about what's on Twitter from Max Congo, where each episode he gets 5 seconds to just kind of talk about the last tweet he saw that made him chuckle. You know?
Cool.
Nothing's funny anymore.
Cool.
Yeah, fair.
Cool.
All right. And then other moments of belief or deceit or things in between. Moment that pops out for me is, hey, Toph, your mom's here to see you.
Oh, I wrote this down. Oh, my goodness. Well,
Mom? I'm excited to see my mom.
Yeah.
Boom. Metal box.
Yeah, that's just talk about ruining trust forever.
Well, because who gave her the note? It was a letter from...
It was a letter that they had intercepted,
right?
And it was in the box with all of the other letters that were true, right? And so the correspondence with the water tribe coordinates, the letter on Appa's Appa's horn, right?
From Guru Patik.
Guru Patik, and then
love that character.
This letter from these two Earth dudes trying to capture Toph, forged, and she can't read it, so she doesn't know what the handwriting looks like. And so, it's just so tough.
But it's such an important moment in Avatar lore canon that is about to take place.
Oh, yeah.
Because of this.
Yeah, but we're not talking about that yet.
Not yet. Max, can you guess what it is?
No.
Okay. So, yeah, big moment of belief where Toph is believing this, and it really is going to hurt her trust when people say...
Yeah.
Hey, I'm reading this to you now.
Yeah, do you remember your dreams?
Sometimes. I have one very vivid dream where I was in I had a penguin, and we were
Was it playing the drums?
Training for the Olympics.
Oh,
For a
bobsledding.
It was a penguin king of the iceberg match. So penguins from different nations would get on one iceberg, and then the last penguin standing would win. And my penguin fell as the iceberg broke.
Tragic.
To a penguin from the Philippines.
You lost to the Philippines.
Yeah. And I was so distraught, I legitimately woke up out of that dream and was like, no!
Yeah.
That was a very vivid one. But other than that, I typically don't remember my dreams.
Yeah, I have a memory.
I have nothing against the Philippines, by the way. You just
lost all of our Filipino listeners.
That was the country that the penguin that won was from. We got silver.
My dream as a young child was I used to dream that I could fly, and I dreamt that I could fly in a really odd way, that like I could raise my arms and then like put them above my head and then push the air down, and I would rise up off the ground, and I'd be like floating off the ground, and then I'd be able to like stay that way and fly. Mm-hmm. And it felt so real because I then like dreamt as I came back to the ground that I fell, and I felt that in my body, and I woke up because of it. And so that I immediately got out of bed and tried it, and it didn't work.
No. There's gonna be a really cool ending to that story, and that wasn't it.
Yeah, but I'm reminded of that when Zuko like reaches up when he goes and looks into the mirror and he sees himself without his scar. I am so like,
and with the Avatar tattoos.
Yeah, yes, but like I was more struck by the fact that he didn't see his scar, because when he wakes up, he touches his face to check to see if the scar is there. And that, at least that's how I interpreted it. Mm-hmm. And, like, could you imagine?
Does he have the scar in the dragon dream? I don't think he does.
He doesn't.
Yeah.
No, like, he's dreaming of himself whole.
Like, if this hadn't have happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And or that he was healed. I don't know if it hadn't happened. But, like, whatever it is, he's imagining himself whole, and I think that's so beautiful to be able to see yourself that way. Mm-hmm. And I think that it broke my heart a little bit when he reached up, touched his face, and you could see all the realization dawn on him that he still had that scar. Mm-hmm. As if could it have all been a terrible dream?
Well, and then let's talk about the dream, right? Because in that moment we have the blue dragon, voiced by the same person it's Azula's voice, and then the red dragon, which is Iroh's voice, and the dragons one is maybe not being honest.
Well, it's like
fall asleep,
the angel and the devil on your shoulder,
sleep, right? But the dragon was lying. Like, what we can assume, I think what they're trying to say is that if he fell asleep, he would have succumbed to death in that moment, is my guess, or coma,
maybe,
or something like that.
Yeah, I didn't think about that.
Because Iroh's sitting there and saying like, no, stay with me, like, and so it's just
and how interesting is it that those are the two voices, like those are his inner voices in his mind.
Terrible. Like, Iroh totally want that as an inner voice. Azula, no,
I would not want that voice in my head.
Never.
God. Yeah, she's the worst.
Can't diagnose her, but. So yeah, how hard that is, but how often are you lying to yourself? You know,
well, and I think it's so easy to believe the lies we tell ourselves sometimes.
The terrible first drafts, stories we tell ourselves.
Yeah, well, it's not just it's not that just they're terrible first drafts. It's that like they're confabulations. They're lies told honestly. They are lies that we believe that what we're saying is true, and it is false. And that is what is called a confabulation. And they're horrifying because they are dangerous. Mm-hmm. And these stories that we make up can be that, for sure.
Absolutely. Any other moments of belief that are really important from this?
I'm sure there were.
Great. You got any of them?
Yes.
Okay.
So the Kyoshi Warriors.
Yes.
Right? Sokka hears and says Sokka is normally fairly wary. He's normally skeptical. He's normally unsure. But after this series of wins and this series of good things, he's starting to. I wonder if it's slowly becoming too optimistic or, quote, overly optimistic. And he is like, oh, the Kyoshi Warriors, I love them. They're wonderful. And then there's this just immediate belief. And it just reminds me of this need to trust but verify. And
So tell me, we've said that a lot before. So what does trust but verify really mean?
I'm going to assume the best. I believe that the Kyoshi Warriors are here. I'm excited that they're here. I'm going to welcome them when they come in. But when they're here, I'm going to make sure that there is a way to determine whether they're actually the Kyoshi Warriors or not. And so the only way that that could have happened is when the Earth King greeted them, somebody who knew them could verify. And so, for instance, if I'm a supervisor to a group of people, I want to assign tasks, and I don't want to micromanage them. I don't want to just like, hey, have you done this? Hey, have you done this? Hey, have you done this?
Right.
But I do need to verify that it got done. And so, hey, my expectation is that you do this by Friday at noon. Friday at noon, my job is to say, hey, did this get done?
I'm going to trust you to do it, and I'm not going to make sure you're doing it.
Yeah.
I'm going to trust that you got it, but Friday at noon, I'm going to verify that the deadline was met.
Or instead say, hey, when you've done this and when this is completed, send me an email so that I know it got completed and so that I don't have to worry about it.
Right.
Just help me help you, right?
Or else I'm going to have to revert to...
Exactly.
Did you do it? Did you do it? Did you do it?
Yeah. So,
okay. So
I think
trust but verify.
Trust but verify is important. And I think we do that with our kids. Like, hey, like, I trust you. And I want you to text me at 10 o'clock so that I know you're okay. Right? You can go out. I trust that you're not going to make bad decisions. And I want you to text me to let me know you're doing okay.
I am curious.
Yeah, tell me more.
As to why they didn't take the 5 minutes it would have taken to go see Suki. And then quickly be able to go, oh, that's not them.
Yeah.
5 minutes. To just be like, oh, let's go say hey before we go on this journey.
I wonder if it would have been longer than 5 minutes.
Okay, 15 minutes. But, like, not that long, you know, especially if you're assuming they got, like, a 4-hour journey coming up.
And,
like,
yeah, in the grand scheme of things,
so,
it's probably not that long.
I would have thought that Sokka would have been like, I've got to go see Suki. It just seems strange to me that, like, oh, let's go see her before we go. That didn't happen.
Yeah.
And how detrimental that ends up being.
Sure. Yeah, I'm really curious if there are some audience perspectives on this scene and, like, why didn't Sokka go check and go say hello?
All right, well, we're going to jump into our next part after a quick break. You got anything else you want to say to wrap up this episode?
Not at this time.
Okay, Max, anything from you, bud?
Not at this time.
Uncanny impression, Pen.
Thanks.
Uncanny. The listeners had no idea. I'm sorry I ruined the magic. All right, we will take a quick break, and then we'll be back with another practice and our devotion as we look through the lens of belief through the element of fire.
Hiya! And now it's time for our wonderful practice together where we're going to try to imagine ourselves back into the world and universe of Avatar, The Last Airbender. And with us, we still have the same people that were with you about 10 seconds ago. And so, with this in mind, Sunshine has picked a clip for us, and we're going to imagine ourselves into the scene. So, what I'd like for us to do, and what I want us to do is, if you can, take a minute, just close your eyes, not if you're driving, but take a minute, close your eyes, and just imagine yourselves into the scene. And you can pick yourself to be one of the characters that you hear, a fly on the wall, however you can put yourself in it, and try to experience what it was like to be present in that moment. And away we go.
It's getting late. Are you planning to retire soon, my lord? I'm not tired.
Relax, Fire Lord Zuko. Just let go. Give into it. Shut your eyes for a while.
No, Fire Lord Zuko. Do not listen to the Blue Dragon. You should get out of here right now. Go! Before it's too late.
Sleep now, Fire Lord Zuko.
Oh, well, that's a lot to dissect.
Azula's so creepy.
But it's not Azula.
Yeah, but it is.
It's a dragon.
All I hear is Azula.
It's a well, it's a dragon.
It's a dragon Azula.
All right. Who are you in that moment?
Yeah, so I was one of the fire-bending soldier people.
Oh, interesting choice.
And I was sitting there, like I'm standing in, like watching Fire Lord Zuko, and I imagined that I couldn't hear the voices because I don't see the dragon's mouths moving. So I don't know that I hear the voices. And so I kind of imagine it in the way where I was watching my Fire Lord and I was watching him be scared. I was watching his facial expressions and seeing his reactions to these dragons circling him. And I was getting scared watching. Like I was, it just like it was as fear's kind of contagious in a way. And when I see my leadership experiencing fear, it makes me a little bit more fearful.
Yeah.
Which I don't love that, but it did. And that's how I felt.
Yeah. I felt that as Zuko. That's the character but like as Zuko in a dream. So the first moment of them being like Fire Lord Zuko and me being like, that's strange. Like, where did that come from? I'm Fire Lord. And then hearing a voice that I know I shouldn't trust, but his family be like, take a nap. Totally go to sleep. And being like, okay, I could. And then hearing someone I've been with for a long time be like, don't you dare. Like, it's time to go. So something's up. It's time to get out of this. But then feeling trapped and feeling like you're falling. And I felt that in a dream before. That's like a quick moment of feeling helpless. Like truly helpless.
Well, which voice is easier to believe? Right? For me, it's really contrasting because the red dragon, the Iroh's voice, is angry. It's loud. It's jarring.
It takes more effort to run away.
Versus
just
just all I want you to do is what's easy. And that's what's scary. Like I think that's what's scary, and what this like you sharing this with me is bringing up in me is saying that we have to choose what is right over what is easy. Right?
Yeah, then that's the answer we want to choose.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's so easy to just pick the easy answer.
Yeah, and it's hard not to pick it.
Right.
It's not only is it easy, but it's also more difficult to pick. Like I think it's worth picking it.
Like he didn't have the ability to run and get away.
Exactly. Yeah.
But that's the answer that like we know he should have listened to the red dragon. So it's scary. It's scary to not feel like you can't choose the right answer. And I wonder how often that comes up in life sometimes.
Yeah.
I know this is wrong, but if I don't do it, do I lose my job? Am I able to do the things that I need to do to provide for family or myself?
Yeah.
And when's the moment that we stand up and say, no, this is wrong and we need to choose what's right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, that's a whole new perspective of the scene.
Isn't that cool? This is a pretty cool little way to get into the Avatar universe that potentially we've never done before, and so that's kind of cool.
Yeah, so let us know what character you chose, or did you choose to be a fly on the wall in that scene, and how did you interpret it? And send that to us through a voice memo at thearchive@gmail.com. thearchive@gmail.com. Send that, and we would love to put that on one of our future episodes.
We would love to. Tell us.
Now it's time for a devotion. Did you think of a theme song?
Devotion, devotion. I'm not causing a commotion.
Yep, so if you've got a better one that you want to write for us, send it on in. We'll throw it in for an
Promotion.
episode.
Promotion also rhymes.
Promotion?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, one of the best ways you could promote this podcast is to tell a friend that likes Avatar and say, hey,
and go on
you might
iTunes and give us a
dig this.
5-star review.
Ooh, that could be nice.
I would love that.
Share it on the interwebs.
You could also go on Patreon.
.com
Yeah.
/ the Arc of E
And then donate.
and donate for bonus content and archived episodes for things like, Carpenter Revisited. If you really like John Carpenter, the director, we got episodes on that. Max loves John Carpenter, the director, so he donates to the Patreon.
What did he direct?
The original Halloween,
Missed it.
Taking of Pelham 123,
The Terminal.
The
That's
Fog.
incorrect. I haven't seen any of these. I'm like a cultured guy. You just haven't seen any of the movies I want to see.
Wait, what? Max, your 3 favorite movies.
It's time
go.
for our devotion.
What are your 3 favorite movies, Max?
My 3 favorite movies are
Terminal,
Hook,
Hook,
Little Big League.
Yeah.
and Little Big League.
Yeah. Versatile as heck.
All pretty heavily male-dominated movies, Max.
Catherine Zeta-Jones is a delight in The Terminal.
Julia Roberts.
Zoe Saldana?
Zoe Saldana's in The Terminal?
Yeah. Come on, man.
Is she really?
Yeah, she's the Trekkie the
It's time for our devotion.
She's in a dance movie called
She's the
Center
one-
Stage.
on belief through a lens of fire.
She's the one.
Hiya.
She's the one who always gives him the red stamp. But like, chances me go to New York, 50-50.
Zoe Saldana,
We're still
is in The
talking about
Terminal.
this.
She's also in Avatar, which is not the same Avatar, The Last Airbender, but has a similar name. Full circle.
James Cameron.
High five, Max.
No.
Space 5.
No.
Lots of space.
Social
in between.
distance.
We're still doing it.
Physical distance.
We're
Not social. I don't
we're
like that term, social
still-
distance. Physical distance.
Yeah. All right. Our devotion.
Yes.
I will bring us back since Ben has been taking us on tangents.
Thank goodness.
All right, let's talk a little bit about our lens through the element of fire.
Yeah, what'd you pick?
For me, it was the importance of knowing when you can trust someone, the warmth that can really bring when you feel like you can trust someone and when they come through for you. And so, but for that to happen, I need to play my part in being credible to individuals. And so it's how do I show up and behave in a way that promotes credibility so that when I need to be trusted, I can be, and that I can do that in a way that helps other people feel good about it.
Yeah. I like it.
Yeah. And for me, it's one of those, it's tough things, right? Like, 'cause there's always this kind of like, why do I care what other people think, right? Like, that's a mode, I shouldn't care what other people think. And sometimes I feel like we should.
I agree.
And realize that our behavior can ultimately change a situation. And so I want to be able to focus on that and how do I make myself more credible.
For sure.
What about you?
I keep coming back to this trust but verify thing. And what comes to my mind is this idea that there are rules around using dangerous things for a reason. And sometimes it's easy to take those rules for granted once we feel comfortable around something, i.e. fire. And it's really easy to be like, oh, I cook, like I've been cooking recently a lot. And so it's really easy to get comfortable in the kitchen and then all of a sudden forget that you have a hot pan and you burn yourself, right? But the rules are in place for a reason. Like you should wear protective gloves. You should do X, Y, and Z. You should, like when we're practicing physical distancing, you should wash your hands and you should wash them for a plenty amount of time. And
20 seconds.
Yeah, and you should use hot water and you should use soap. And sometimes it's easy to take for granted until we learn not to. And so I want to trust, but I want to not let these. I don't want to take the rules around trust for granted. So I want to trust but verify.
I love that.
Thanks.
What are you all going to do? Make sure you let us know, thearchive@gmail.com, or tweet at us at BNB_pod, or follow us on Instagram, BNB_pod.
Please do. Please do.
We would love to see you on the interwebs.
I love the interwebs.
Next week, we have a fun little episode called The Guru, and we're going to be looking at that through the lens of what, Ben?
Self-development.
Self-development, which we think is important. We're very big on that here.
I love self-development.
And then we are almost done with Season 2.
Isn't that scary?
Season 2.
Oh my goodness.
And then we will start prepping for Season 3.
we got surprises for Season 3.
We've got some surprises. It's going to be a little bit different, but we're very excited about it.
Not too different.
But a little.
But a little different.
And so we'll be
In a
working
good
on that.
way.
But before that happens, we still got 2 more episodes coming your way.
Changes.
Is this when you tell me you're getting a new producer?
No, Max, I already told you at the beginning of the season, you are locked in for like 80 more episodes after this.
There's 4 seasons of Legend of Korra.
Oh, sorry. Like 100 more episodes of this.
All right.
And then we're going to do the Dragon Prince. So,
It's so good.
30 more
The
episodes
Dragon
there.
Prince is so good.
I look forward to it.
So we've locked you in for a long... Did you not read your contract that you signed? You're on like a 10-year deal.
I signed nothing.
We pay you in tea.
Not good enough.
Well, renegotiate your contract.
You can keep Max on as our producer by donating to the Patreon.
Patreon.com/thearchofe.
And without further
People are
ado,
gonna start requesting
we're
money
going
from
to
you.
end the episode because it's over.
It's time to go. I'm Sunshine Mayfield.
I'm Ben Pruitt.
And this has been Bending Not Breaking. Thank you all so much for listening.